There's been a fire reported in the building. Please proceed to the nearest exit and leave the building.
This is just a drill.
Fighting security. That's 19 security. Floor 2 is clear.
Okay, we are on the air. My name is Eric with Deciphering My Experience, and today I am here with Michael, who has been following along with my, I guess, Facebook page before it got deplatformed, but now just the YouTube. And Michael and I have just been contacting each other through email, trying to make contact to bring this video to fruition. It's taken some time, but here we are, beyond all technical difficulties. Hopefully this will sound loud and clear for everybody following along. But just to give everybody a heads up, Michael is an experiencer, and he is here to talk to us today about the looking glass operation, the Montauk chair, time travel, the Tunguska blast, ships that are out there that he has been affiliated with, Project Bluebeam in the Norway Spiral. I'm very interested to hear more about. That's not a topic everybody hears about anymore. Super soldiers as children is a topic that I'm very interested to hear from him on. And etheric portals is another topic that I know that he has a background in. So these are all things that we're going to discuss with Michael today. Welcome to the show, Michael. How are you doing today?
Thanks for having me. It's kind of fun, exciting, and new, because it's the first time I really spoke out.
Well, thank you very much for reaching out to me and being willing to speak about your experiences. I am aware that it is challenging to, put a voice to your experience. So I appreciate you, stepping up to this effort. But with that being said, I guess let's start with where you were at in life, at the point in which you noticed my experience. I came across your radar and you decided to talk to me. So I guess let the audience know, kind of where your brain was at and how that happened.
Well, I've been, throughout my entire life, it's almost like I've been trying to speak out. And it's like my guides or whatever would say no. And I'm always looking for someone that, I don't want a large platform to begin with, and someone that speaks correctly. When I listen to you, I can see how you speak. And like I was telling you before, when you said something about spinning copper, and I went, ooh, okay, that grabbed my attention. Maybe he knows more about spinning other materials to generate electricity and do other things. So just the way you spoke kind of caught my attention.
Okay.
That's why, okay, let's reach out and see what we can do there.
Excellent.
I think that was only a few months back.
10-4. Yeah, that was relatively recently. I think that I spoke about that on air. But that is a concept that I do wish people had a greater appreciation for, is that we utilize the phenomenon commonly known as electricity, like you had stated, through the use of spinning copper and magnets in a particular fashion by a particular design. So quite simply, I suggest that we work with other materials and spin them and see what happens. It's very
yeah. So it's I guess I would say for my life, I remember only till I was 5. Every night when I would go to sleep, I would go to school and read books.
Mm-hmm.
I just thought they were dreams. I didn't know this was anything different until I started talking to other kids. And they say, well, you can't read books when you dream. I said, yeah, I do. And so I'm 61. So back then when I was speaking up, I learned real quick to keep my mouth shut.
Mm-hmm.
So now I think it's time, because with all the work, what's going on in the world, we definitely need to release technology that is, it's been around here before I was even born.
Oh yeah.
So we have to to me, in order for the planet to move on, we have to release it.
Absolutely. I think that's part of the growth process. I find it rather obvious that the technologies that we're utilizing today are from techniques of old that also had technologies of old off of the techniques that were still even older. And we're just going through these cycles. And that, yes, there is technologies that are being utilized by a elite minority that the majority would benefit thereof.
Yeah, it's like, from what I have seen, personally seen, is there's an entire civilization of human beings that travel among the stars, and yet we're kept in like the best way I could say it, this is an experiment in consciousness, and we're kept down, and only a few people will look past the sheep. And it's quite challenging to know how to move about the stars and yet live here, pay your taxes, get your little social security card. And it's like, to me, sometimes it's a little too much being here on this planet. In the framework of the society that doesn't really know about technology, that's been here for at least 100 years in the hands of man.
It very much limits their perspective and their imagination and their ability to engage in this conversation because their definition of available technology is so compromised.
And like with Tesla and the batteries, I'm like, okay, why don't we just get rid of that and go right to the real stuff?
Right. Yes.
And I've been around ships all my life. Now I read about the Bell ship, about how they used mercury, and it's at room temperature as a liquid, and it's a great conductor. If you add magnetic particles to it, start spinning it, now you can spin. What they did, they took one drum, spun it one way, another drum, spun it another way. It then becomes electromagnetic. The field gets larger, it induces more. The faster you go, the more electricity will be induced. You better find a way to put it somewhere else or you're going to blow it up.
There was a Canadian experimenter / scientist quite a few years ago. His last name was Hamill. Are you familiar with his work at all?
No.
He was another I guess maverick in this energy work, and he would assemble, for all practical purposes, objects about the size of a 55-gallon drum, and inside that he would have, of different materials, he would have different rings, balls, and cones stacked in a way that the rings would have the balls on them like bearings and have other acting rings and bearings, and then the cones, being of different materials, would be in the interior, and things would pivot and rotate depending on how things spun. But for all practical purposes, this device would just be these stacked up rings, balls, and cones with a capped piece put on top. Once the capstone was applied, everything would set to motion and you would get anti-gravity. Or free energy, or both, however you want to put it. But again, I guess I'm bringing this up to show that there's a multitude of ways of doing this. Hamill was one way of doing it. It's very similar to what you were saying, but again, it's just spinning materials for the reaping of the benefit of phenomenon that we don't see happening all the time.
And this is why they want to keep this technology secret. It's not patentable.
It's too simple and too available.
It's exactly.
Back to Tesla, one of his quotes that I will butcher, but he said something to the effect of listening to mankind complain about energy is like listening to a man float downstream in a canoe complaining about thirst.
Yeah, because it's all around us. Right.
There's so many ways to harness it.
Yeah, and with that 55-gallon drum, you talk about anti-gravity. I've been able to look at movies and see, I know what I'm looking for with how certain types of these craft and the I would call them drones, how they move.
Mm-hmm.
You would barely ever see them, but I know what I'm looking for in True Lies. I used to have it on my computer. I had it down to the second of where to go and the film clip. And I had a flood and it took my whole computer out, gone. I went, oh, I mean, hours and hours and hours.
Mm-hmm.
In True Lies, where the limousine goes on the bridge and it's going through the fire.
Mm-hmm.
Jamie Lee Curtis is sticking out of the roof. Right above her head, you'll see something pop in. It looks like a 55-gallon drum. It's very long, probably I'd say 20, 30 feet. Now exactly, you're laughing. On the bottom, it's white with weight. You'll see the difference. It's white on the bottom with a squiggly line and black on top.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if you were to be looking up, you would see white. If you're to be looking down, you see black. So its movement would not get your attention.
Mm-hmm.
But I know how they work.
Mm-hmm.
And so to see the sporadic movement, aha, there's one.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd go frame by frame and I go, there you go, I see him.
Mm-hmm.
And I would record that, put it on my computer.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have any more of that.
10-4?
It was days and days and days and hours of doing that.
It's funny how much effort you can put into compiling some stuff and how in the blink of an eye it can be gone.
It's gone.
Yep.
And I had suspicions because there was nobody upstairs in the apartment up there.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of that stuff happens with me. I have missing time. And sometimes it's when I speak out.
Mm-hmm.
There was one time I had 12 hours of missing time. I didn't think I said anything.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know, but now it's like, okay, I see so much happening on the planet in this that I can't keep my mouth shut. I thought other people would be speaking about this.
I appreciate that 100% because I know there's other people in these programs. Excuse me.
Oh yeah.
So and I get there's a lot of involvement as well, and because I'm not trying to put people down either. I think there's a lot of people that are involved in these programs unbeknownst to themselves.
Yep.
That the system is actually set up to be so compartmentalized for the best function is for the people to not even know what they're a part of. But
well,
this is why I want folks like you and I to connect, to bring these people's focus more to a level of responsibility, because this is how it works too. And if we're going to properly dismantle this network, we have to be honest on its structure.
yeah, from what I've seen was, I would say thousands of people that have been, in my case, I'm taken at times and brought back, and I knew something happened, but I can't remember a thing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I've actually seen other people in this town talk to them there, wherever there was,
Mm-hmm.
and they don't remember a thing.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there was another woman that had an experience with me, and she was kind of freaked out about it. And she told me what she saw, and she was kind of scared. And she wanted me to tell her if I remember. Well, I did. I remembered everything that happened, but I didn't want to tell her because it would have thrown that much more fear onto her.
Right.
So I just said, no, I don't remember anything. Because for me, the way I see it is that if I wake up, I check, if I have all my digits, I check to see I'm good to go and I'm good to go. Being part, what I call a black slate, I've been used all my life, is I'm not supposed to remember. But there's things that I've been shown, I probably hop around, I don't know which direction to go. Like one time I was in a, what looked like a chase plane, but it was probably a ship, and we were following this other plane into the atmosphere.
Mm-hmm.
All of a sudden, flicked a switch, and all the leading edges of the plane just turned to a dull white fog. What they did is every leading edge and controlling surface is high conductivity metal,
Mm-hmm.
and they flip high voltage on.
Mm-hmm.
You don't heat the plane up, you give up electrons, you don't give up parts of the plane.
I've had this technology explained to me by folks from other programs. I am
Yeah.
familiar with this. The leading edges,
Yep.
they run ripping high voltage on there. What winds up happening is similar to like a Tesla coil. The plasmatic effect in the atmosphere is actually creating a vacuum in the front of the plane.
Okay.
So they're negating the standard existing forces working against the plane by creating this plasmatic effect in the front of it, causing a vacuum. Therefore, it's
Can't
really
heat
like
up.
you're 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 causing the plane to constantly fall forwards.
And it doesn't heat the plane at all
No, not at all. No, it doesn't. It
because you're
doesn't.
not touching the surface.
No, not at all. Has nothing. Yes,
Yeah.
it's you're not engaging that surface in this reaction. You're creating a vacuum in front of it.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I saw it. I didn't know what it was. I knew that they were doing high voltage. I don't know the exact thing about it.
Mhm.
That would be good to talk back and forth to, because what I've seen and what I've been part of,
Mhm.
to get more detailed would be
Mhm.
great.
Mhm.
See,
Mhm.
my memories really actually started coming back strong when I was about 33. And when I came to Mount Shasta, I spoke about being with the military a lot.
Mhm.
And this one lady says, you know, you speak like you're under MK Ultra mind control. I said, no. And she kept talking about Kathy O'Brien.
Mhm.
And more than one person said, yeah, you should read this book. And I kept giving it the hoo-hoo.
Mhm.
I don't want to read it until someone actually put it in my hand,
Mhm.
said, read this book. When I started reading it, it shocked the hell out of me because Mark Phillips, who was her boyfriend that helped her out of the programs,
Mhm.
worked at Ampex in Mountain View with top secret clearance. That's where my father worked with top secret clearance. And when I looked at my life, there was CIA. Three of my friends' father were CIA.
Mhm.
Come to find out, our whole neighborhood was an experiment. And as children, we were given up to see what kind of abilities we had.
Mhm.
And I go, for me, it's real. My life is not linear.
I can follow that. I don't know if you've ever gotten to my timeline video.
No, I'd like to see it.
I have a video up where I discuss. Okay, I'm going to make a leap here and presume that you have been in the gateway type programs as a child, which I have myself.
Okay.
So, is that accurate? Would you say that during your school years that you were in the Monroe Institute remote viewing and that kind
Um,
of gateway Stargate program stuff?
I've been through them, but I thought the looking glass, which was time travel, I
Mhm.
thought I was at Princeton.
Oh, no worries. These are
Okay.
programs that were in different locations.
Okay.
So I don't want to try to profess that there is a geographical precision to it. Not in the slightest. These programs were run by institutions and then marketed all over the place. Basically, like a packaged product. And then if they want to bring it to your neighborhood and your school, then so be it. Next thing you know, there's a batch of kids getting experimented on because the program has some value.
Now, were those the ones that would open doorways? You just walk through it to another space on Earth
You know
or on
something
other
that would be
planets?
that I would be asking of your experience. My experience, I don't have that specificity yet, but I do believe that exists in the programs.
Yeah.
My current recollection right now is of the training process, the actual sitting down with the attendants that showed up from these programs, these packaged programs that were getting marketed, showed up to my school. I remember getting the training. I remember looking in devices that were peculiar. I remember getting eye drops put in my eyes. These were all things that were unbeknownst to my parents, or at least one of them. But
Yeah. Yeah.
and so things like that, I'm very interested in. I do know that it does get into more advanced activities like walking through portals and things like that. I just don't want to put out there that I have that recollection of myself yet. I'm working on it. This is why I go by my title, Deciphering My Experience, because I don't want to pretend that I have all the answers yet. I'm totally working on it, and I'm glad you're helping me out.
Yeah, see, I would love to go in depth, maybe at another time, to see how you were trained, because with me, when I was younger, there would be a door just opens. You walk through it. You can walk just like walking through, let's say, your door from your bedroom to the hallway. You could be on any part of the planet. And I remember I was put in South Africa, and I remember I was doing something, but an AK-47, and I don't know how the communications were, but I'm yelling, I got to get out of here. Help me get out of here. They said, get to, what is it? Serengeti Plains, get there. So I'm running down the road, and I look on the road, and the space starts to, what I call either pixelate or articulate. I know that's about to have a door open. I jump into the bushes, the door opens, and I'll never forget, this is probably 20 years ago or longer. First thing comes through is a tank, and the guy hanging out of the tank must have been a mercenary, because he was laughing and he looked, I don't know if I could swear, but he was batshit crazy. And I will never forget that. And then it was like a whole platoon came through, and then it closed. We can go, if you want to call it America military, we can go anywhere on the planet instantaneously. And the Norway spiral is a hyperdimensional doorway. The ancient aliens are not ancient. They're us. And that's how, because the planet's frequency is moving on, and we're now, like with me, I'm starting to speak out. There's others that'll have to, because it's the truth, it's what I experienced. And so they can't control a populace that pretty much says up your butt, We don't really need a government.
Understood.
And so that's what the process is, and that's what you're seeing with the pandemic or whatever it is. It's about division. And if you look at people that wear masks to people who don't, they're going to start fighting each other. If not already
happening. You're 100% right. These are all knobs on a machine, and the people are getting played, and the vast majority love the sound of this music. They're happy. They're happy to be
exactly.
They could care less if you tell them to turn down that noise. They will fight you tooth and nail and say it's not noise. It's a symphony, and I'm going to listen to it.
And they will actually fight you to death.
Correct.
And it was done in Laos and Cambodia, and what's called the killing fields. It was done in Guyana, where here's how in Guyana, they were told, here's a bunch of people going to come and kill you. So why not take this Kool-Aid and die now? And they did. So I don't take this lightly, and I tell people, don't stand up against anything now. It's not a good thing. But truth-wise, I'm just speaking about some of the things that I experienced. I would love to have somebody confirm stuff.
Well, this is why I wanted to find out too, because I don't think that we're speaking different tongues here. I think this gets back to, like you said, that even in your life, things seem to be a lot less linear. So what I would say off what you were just discussing, I would refer to, in my experience, as challenge dreams. And they certainly, they do exist in my experience, but they're separate from my here and now experience in my grammar school, where I was like legitimately sat down in the 3D realm for training on these energies and abilities that you're now discussing that, yes, you use later on in a training capacity. So I guess my inquiry goes back to, do you remember having any formal hands-on training as a child in a classroom type environment prior to these gateway situations potentially?
I would be taken, well, my grandparents on my father's side were Masonic,
Mm-hmm.
and on my grandmother's side, he was a union representative for the Teamsters,
Mm-hmm.
and there was a lot of shady stuff there.
Mm-hmm.
I would be taken to the Rosicrucian Garden a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember the teachings, but
Okay.
why would I go there so many times a week?
Totally understood. And this is why we have different pieces of our memories. You have, for all practical purposes, let's say theoretically, we have the exact same story. It's possible that our recollections of it have so many holes in it that we can't even match them up. I remember this part, you remember that part, and we could never even figure out that we were connected.
We could have been in the same class.
Totally possible. Totally possible.
Yeah.
But with that being said, there's certainly already things that we know from both of our stories that interconnect. The childhood super soldiers, the Montauk chair, the looking glass topics are all very intriguing to me, and I have some intermingling of experiences. So anything in your past that if you want to bring that to the table, I'm all ears.
Let's look at the if you want to call it a super soldier, it's more it works with the child's ability. My ability is I can oscillate through different frequencies of existence.
Okay.
This is one frequency.
Mm-hmm.
I can oscillate through different frequency.
Mm-hmm.
Also, they would train me how to work with the energies here.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember there was 4 of us in a square, and I would put my hand like it was like this. I'd push it out like this, just one hand.
Right.
This is the receiver, and you curl it around, and then you stick this hand over your elbow.
Okay.
And what they were teaching us is, okay, take the energy from that person, spin it and shoot it that way. And we would constantly go around in circles, and I thought we were just push as much energy as we could.
Mm-hmm.
So I started really pumping up until my hands started to hurt and burn.
Mm-hmm.
And I went, ooh, and I stopped, and I looked to the person I was sending it to, and she stepped out of the way, and there was a cinder block target,
Mm-hmm.
and there was a white hole with it dripping.
Mm-hmm.
And she goes, this is not, she goes, you're not working with an outlet, Mike. And when people call me Mike, it's not it's not Michael, or they call me Mike, they're being serious.
Mm-hmm.
In the times that I would, which was multiple times when I'd go out underground bases and such, I was able to simply raise my hand and they would drop, the people would drop.
Mm-hmm.
And I could also use it for a light. And when I was out of body, these beings of light burnt in these white balls of light into my hands. And so I was very comfortable in any situation to work alone, even in combat.
I do find it interesting, just from what you were telling me, in the orientation of your circle and your hands. If you pay attention to the position, you, in your position with your hands, were transforming that energy to the angle of 90 degrees, which is the angle of transformation.
And there was 4 of us, which all were in 90 degrees.
Correct. Understood.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
There is a lot of sacred geometry applied to the manipulation of energies.
And they know, the government knows.
And it matters. And I always think that's funny to say, that to work with energy appropriately matters. It's
yeah. And so I've seen other children with different abilities.
Mm-hmm.
And
could you clarify on that?
Huh?
Could you clarify?
We're all energy, even right now. And now, but this was in a different frequency, though. They asked me to do something special. I just walked up on the ceiling and walked down. This one guy just grabbed himself and pulled him apart, put himself back together. it's the limit of our own consciousness that stops us from doing things. Walking on water is no big deal.
I was as you were stating the opening thing, I was thinking in my head, it's limited, it's exclusively limited by your imagination in that zone. And
We've
that's
been
the
taught
thing.
that we're physical.
Mhm.
Well, not all my life, but it took 3 years of going to sleep and being killed multiple different ways to realize that I am energy, not physicality.
I'm happy to hear you
Even
say that.
right now,
I'm happy
we're
to hear
not.
you say that. I don't know of many people that look at the dream world that way or share that experience. I too, I don't know. I guess it might sound morbid to people, but
Yeah,
again,
it does.
yeah. I mean, I don't know what to say to that, but in reality, yeah, the vast majority of my time in my life in dreamland has been a savagely defensive practice of increasing my imagination to overcome the attack, and for the most part failing. I mean, they usually end in failure and you have to grow.
That's. I can't even tell you how many times I've failed, if you want to
Right.
call it that.
Yeah,
But
I
that's
mean,
how
it is, yeah. You most often don't get away. That's why you have to go back and do it again.
Yeah, and it actually, just for me to learn about energies and such, it took 3 years,
Hmm.
as I kind of measured it, 3 years of being killed and such. And then I remember, because I was in a school and not everyone was human.
Hmm.
I think I was about the only human one.
Hmm.
And my best friend was what I call a snake being. Somebody may call them reptilian, but he was my best friend. And the teacher took me to the front of the class, and he brought this long dagger out, and it was like my quote graduation, and he just slammed it into my chest, and it just went right in. And I laughed, and I pulled it out and gave it back to him. I said, you can't harm energy. And this helps with here, because there's no fear of death or anything like that here.
Right.
But then the whole class started throwing knives at me, and my best friend threw this big hatchet butcher knife, and it hit me right here and split me open, and I doubted. And immediately I was taken out of that situation. You
Hmm.
can't have any doubts of what you truly are.
Hmm.
Right now, we're 99% empty space.
Hmm.
And I tell people, look at the double slit experiment.
Hmm.
What causes the wavelength to collapse to be a particle?
Oh, it's just observation.
And an
That's all.
observation needs to be conscious,
Hmm.
can't be unconscious.
Hmm.
So literally, I think what I'm being pushed to show is that everyone here can shift their consciousness, and we can literally manifest anything, and won't be hurt by anything physicality wise.
It is on the possibilities list.
Yeah.
I do think we need more minds in this collective. I think there is obviously energy and intention being applied to prevent that from happening.
Yeah.
I believe there's technology being applied to prevent that from happening, because I do believe the ancient occulted mystery information for eons that effectively is just the truth is being hidden from us, that there are techniques that your average human being can train in and learn to increase their energy skills. And there are technologies that can be applied to abuse a person's ability to do what naturally can occur. And I think we're at one of those moments in time that has happened time and time again, where the powers that be have technology.
Yeah.
And the
Yeah.
vast majority of people need to wake up to the strengths that they need to technically train in at this point, because the momentum has been building up for so long on the other direction that we're beyond, Newton's laws of motion would say, an equal and opposite force. But this momentum in this mass is so big at this point. It's going to take a lot of reverse energy applied to it.
It's more of not a combatant. It's more of a shifting of our perception, because we think we're physical. We think my age and older have been taught, okay, you can't do this, you can't do this, you don't have invisible friends. If you tell you hear voices, you're schizophrenic.
Right.
All this is baloney. And the children they're much more open, and we shouldn't suppress what they're doing. And that's why military and such go after children that are open.
These programs absolutely target in that direction.
Yeah.
And I think that's also something that we need to get the folks to understand is that, you were in the military, you've seen technologies, you can understand that bad people organize quicker than good people, and that their plans run out longer, I guess, than the standard perspective cares to look at. Does that make sense?
Yeah, they have a long-standing plan, and they're, quote, all in on it. With, if you want to call it spiritually open people, they really don't have a plan.
Right. They just go on by day to day.
Yeah.
And they don't even realize someone's plotting against them.
And it would be very easy to collectively come together to show, and I think this is what it's going to get down to, is we need to show them. My mom would always say, the proof is in the pudding. You got to show them. You can't just say, hey, you're the light of God playing in this. You're only playing this for them. You got to show them.
I agree with your mother 100%. The proof is in the pudding. People say things like, if these things were going on, we would know, and someone would say something. That's why I'm on camera. Because there are programs that the government uses to target children. Like you said.
Yeah.
That's a reality.
It's programmed into me fear to speak out. And I didn't think I got nervous just talking, but it was like, okay, I've been through quite a bit. And there's been times I didn't even want to tell my best friend. And it sent me to the hospital with I kind of went, I almost died. My blood pressure was at 246 over 136. I was about ready to explode because I had so many beings come focus on me. It was military, and how it's happened. It was during, I think it was New Year's Eve, Christmas Eve. And this was in 2004. I had this urge to go climb. It's called Sand Flat up on the mountain. It's a nice flat opening. And it took me about 20 minutes once I got my car up there to walk out into Sand Flat. And I turned around to walk back. Every bit of energy was dropped out of my body. And it took me an hour and a half to get back. I was rubber-legged and everything. When I got back home, a girlfriend of mine that I've known for some time called me from another state, and she said they were sorry. They had to use your energy to open a doorway. Well, that's the day of that big earthquake that took 250,000 people in Indonesia.
Okay.
My friend, she said, I don't know why I'm being guided to do this, but I'm to clear out the astral realm because there's going to be more people in. And I was used as just a blasting cap. For 2 weeks, I was bombarded etherically, physically, with all sorts of shit. It was not fun at all. And I ended up in the hospital with that one. And I'll hop around like you seen the movie Inception. Okay, that they do that all the time. And I was trained because the person that's talking to you try to get information. There's another person or entity, whatever you want to call it, creating the world, wherever you're in.
Mm-hmm.
Violence can shake, can rattle. Violence is a very coarse energy. It will shake their reality. And like if you're in a room or whatever you're in, you can actually shake it. Then you can tell, okay, somebody's imposing upon me. And I've been trained. One time I said, you're the one that's doing it. And then all these other people disappeared. And she said, you missed one thing. My boyfriend's in a different room. He's the one's manifesting this. I'm the one talking to you.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, they'll try to keep you involved in a conversation,
Mm-hmm.
and they'll create the world around you.
Mm-hmm.
And it's almost like here.
Mm-hmm.
They get your attention going one way, and the whole friggin' world will change, and nobody's saying a thing.
Ancient techniques.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's been working.
It's magic. It's sleight of hand. It's misdirection. These are techniques, and people can laugh in one angle, but in reality, if you were standing in front of the magician, he would trick you all day long.
Yep.
And if you didn't even know there was a magic show going on, guess how much more trickery would be afoot?
And you would believe it.
Absolutely, because you'd have no reason to disbelieve it, because you wouldn't think there's a show going on.
Yep. That's right on.
Yeah, I mean, this is the state of the world right now, is that the vast majority of the people spent their entire life waking up, going to a job, concerned about their mortgage.
Yep.
That's the limit of their perspective, and they've been very much engineered to maintain that perspective. And if you try to have a conversation with them outside of that box, or if you discuss anything that challenges the information inside of that box, as you stated earlier, they will go for your throat.
Yeah, it's almost like the Matrix. If you're,
it's precisely like the Matrix.
If you're out of the Matrix, everyone in the Matrix is after you're their enemy.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I cannot begin to tell you how many times I've just been sitting down having a casual conversation with someone, amicable, right? I do a lot of remote work in man camps. You meet strangers, you have a meal. That's the extent of your interaction with that human being for the rest of your life. But it's amicable until the moment you bring up something that causes them to pause and question, like you said in the dream, right? Just like you said in the dream, when you question, it pulls you out of the dream. I would suggest that in reality, when I give people pause to question their reality, it pulls them right out of that. And something unreal then enters the conversation, which I refer to as their programming.
Yeah, I can actually see when I speak something, I can watch them close down.
Absolutely. Yes.
It's like a switch.
Yes, I can watch that real person. I can watch the real experience that I was talking to a minute ago turn off.
Yep.
And I can watch the program that they've been, I guess, exposed to for the entirety of their life from every direction, take control, and I will proceed to get regurgitated propaganda from whatever is their favorite info stream. Like a computer.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Exactly so.
It's both terrifying and amazing because it's technology. I can see it as that, but they don't understand that they've been programmed.
And you can't tell them otherwise.
No.
It's not worth it. It's not worth the trouble. And like, I guess Montauk, the Montauk chair, and through Montauk they said it was Duncan Cameron projected a future, and that other people they recorded the frequency, and other psychics would get in the chair and they would be taken to that, and they confirmed, yes, the city is destroyed and there's only a horse standing. Well, what they found out is that it's not really a future. He projected that with his mind, the antenna and underneath made it manifest. He could have manifested it here. It manifested that, they recorded it, and they could go back and go right back to that same frequency.
Okay.
there was a guy that asked me to remote view a base east of S4. And, you know, I haven't done it in a long time, and I shouldn't have done it by myself, because when I focus upon things, I can actually go there.
Mhm.
And I don't want to do that.
Mhm.
Well, I sat down, I laid in bed, and next thing I know, I'm walking in an underground base, and it was a nice shiny concrete floor. And I walked into this area, and there was a nurse there, or a technician. She goes, "Huh, you really love it down here, don't you?" And I didn't answer anything because I didn't know if it was me. I had no clue.
Mhm.
It's one of those ones, I don't know if I'm actually physically there, so I keep my mouth
Or
shut.
presenting as someone other than yourself, then that she
It doesn't,
knows.
yeah. And so I went, okay.
Mhm.
And
You hadn't walked past a mirror yet.
I know, huh? And I looked over, and there's like a stainless steel ironing board sitting from the wall, a window. That's where all the technology was. Then you had articulating antenna that went over. You sat on the iron board, got comfortable. The antenna came over your head. Whatever you think, one thought, you have to be trained not to think of a million different things.
Mm-hmm.
It would manifest in your hand.
Mm-hmm.
I was teaching a younger person how to do it. I said, okay, I would like to have a glass of strawberry champagne. It manifested in my hand, and the kid was kind of freaking out, and he took a sip, and I took a sip, and I said, see, there you go.
Mm-hmm.
Then I walked around, and I was to take him out of body, conscious wise, to remote view.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a controller there that, in other words, my body's there. You could talk to that body. I can hear it. That's a safe way to do it.
I want to inquire about your recollection at this point. So you're talking about this environment that you're in. You said you were training another kid or child, you had said. So in this scene, could you recollect how old you felt you were, how old this child was, and this other attendant?
The kid that I was treating, I thought he was about 19.
Okay.
That's what came to me. When I was there, and I can't remember how many years ago, it was at that conscious level, whatever years old I was.
Can you put a number to that ballpark?
I was in my 50s.
Okay, 10-4. Okay. And then the attendant that was there as well?
Yeah,
Age?
she had dark hair,
Mhm.
and she was a younger, I'm guessing in her 20s.
10-4.
And I did not see my controller. He
Mhm.
came in after I laid down,
Mhm.
and what I did is my body floated up, or my consciousness floated up and went out the window, through it. It wasn't open.
Mhm.
And I picked up the kid. I said, "Come on, let's go." And we went into it was a subway. And we're floating into the subway, and I'm on one side, and then all of a sudden, a large explosion. And I went, oh, okay. And then I looked for the guy. I couldn't see him.
Mhm.
Then through my controller, he said, "You got to get back here. He's injured." And I said, "What?" He goes, "He's injured." So I came back, and it's not, well, for me, it's not possible if I'm consciously here, but not the body. I don't get injured from the explosions or whatever.
Mhm.
But if you believe, or if you actually move there, because there's a very fine line between actually bilocating and remote viewing. You
Correct.
need someone there to keep you there, because we're literally collapsing our own wave functions all the time
Understood.
to stay in this form.
This is part of the stuff I've discussed this with Penny Bradley before, and she said that this is one of the things that she had difficulty with when she was training to do remote viewing, that she kept crossing the line to bilocation, and that
Yep.
was pissing her trainers off.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So we got back, and I said, okay, he's injured. And I had a meeting with it it was debriefing.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the very first time ever
Mm-hmm.
that none of the military personnel around me blanked out their face. Usually they will they will always airbrush their face out from my memory
Mhm.
because I know who's who.
Mhm.
And one guy came up to me and gave me 2 words. And then boom, I wake up, I'm back in bed.
Mhm.
First thing I do is go to the computer, type in those 2 words, and then it hit me.
Mhm.
You idiot. They got you.
Mhm.
They knew you knew by typing in those words. And I went, oh God, what an idiot.
Don't you
But
hate
that's
when
how,
that happens?
that's
Yep.
how they do it.
Yeah. There he is
Yeah.
right there.
Yeah. Okay. We got him. We know he remembers.
Yes. This was part of the Montauk stuff back in the day that people can, I mean, they can look up the information. This is out there. What they were doing with the SAGE radar at the inception of these programs, and when they were trying to dial in people, they would shoot out a signal to the greater Long Island area. That was a phone number. Simply just crank out a phone number.
And who picked it up, dialed it?
Who calls the number? Simple plan. And then
And those are,
somebody would literally just wind up feeling like a lunatic, calling the phone number going, listen, I don't know what's going on, but I keep hearing this phone number in my head, so I'm calling.
and then guess what?
Yeah, guess what? Yeah, you just won the lotto.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the thing. That's what they do.
Mm-hmm.
And what I found the Montauk chair to be is that it wasn't really about time travel. It was about frequency location. Everything's a frequency.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Don't forget
so,
there was decades of activity there.
oh God, there's,
Yeah.
it's, as far as I know, the underground base was a naval intelligence base. The only thing I can remember is being under the base, and because like I said, this was back in the 40s,
Mm-hmm.
and Preston Nichols was there. And the person I worked with, all I remember his name being was Nate. And he received a packet of such, and he opened it up, and it showed that every naval ship had that radar on it, so it can actually not only bilocate, but can go back in time.
Mm-hmm.
Because time is only a frequency. It's not linear.
Mm-hmm.
And if you ask any physicist, they cannot prove time anything other than this moment.
Michael, you're telling me that you suspect that every naval vessel might have the ability to time travel? Who would say such things?
Not might. They do.
Understood.
And the thing is that then it raises my little bit of curiosity. Okay, wasn't there some stories about how powerful the pirates were? And they had the skull and crossbones flag? Look at what the naval vessels fly.
Mm-hmm.
They fly the skull and crossbones.
Mm-hmm.
They have it on the back of the tail of some of the airplanes.
There's certain submarine missions that come back and make the news, and they say that the submarine came back under the skull and crossbones.
There's, well, let's go into the Tunguska blast.
Sure.
Here's how it worked. I went to sleep and I woke up and okay, I'm in Mount Shasta. There's a base on the northeast side of this mountain, high tech. They've been trying to get in to the mountain and some of the beings that are in Earth. There's also a base just above Lake Shasta, down south. I was at that base, and they showed me an opening in time space, and then a cruise missile had absolutely no markings on it whatsoever. Next thing I know, I'm in a ship with the military, and we're hovering above this forest, and we're just sitting there. I watched one missile go by. Another one came over and exploded. I came back from that to that base down there, and when you're taking energy and manipulating space, your body is in this space. Okay, it's almost like taking a rubber band, putting a little stick person on it. Okay, now you take the rubber band and you move it. Your physicality stays relative to that rubber band.
Mhm.
But what I saw, my feet were about 20 feet out that way. Because you're moving time. It's called time space, but it's
Mhm.
only space, and you're part of it. And so you get moved around. I was like, whoa. Another guy comes up, which is Black Ops, even blacker than black. And he goes, you only went back 100 years. And they started laughing. And that was the Tunguska blast.
Hmm.
And it's funny to me that, you know, what they say, it was a meteor, it was this, it was that. Shit, I watched it. But what made me pay attention is the one that went on by. Because if this is hyperdimensional, if we're open up hyperdimensional space or space in different frequency, which we call the past, well, where'd that sucker go? So I typed up dinosaur fossils, and they have to paint them with lead paint because they're radioactive. And immediately I thought, fuck, oh, sorry, we terraformed this planet by sending back nuclear weapons and took out the dinosaurs. That's just a thought. I haven't witnessed it,
Uh-huh.
but I thought, where did that other one go?
Mhm.
You know, I've seen a couple of explosions of nuclear, some on sea, and that one was Tunguska.
Okay. Well, I think for clarity, because I recall that this was mentioned in an email between you and I, but I don't know that it was just conveyed in that conversation there. But what you're getting at is that you are saying that you've seen nuclear weapons activated post time travel, basically taken from now into the past and utilized.
Yep.
Gotcha.
Yes.
I've never heard anybody else say that before, to be honest. That's the first
Yeah.
for me.
Well, it's kind of it's kind of odd because when I see things, and the stuff that we have done, and I'll have to say we because I'm part
Humans.
of
Let's just say humans in that
it.
we.
Yeah. Okay. The humans, what they've done is just unbelievable.
Mhm.
You know, they never stopped. The genetic testing on humans and other beings and the crossbreeding still goes on at where is it, Dulce?
Mhm.
And I don't know if it was part of because they try to mind screw me all the time. I was taken to what I configured was Dulce, and they took me down and they said, yeah, we created you. And I saw other beings that were half human and half other things, and I went,
Mhm.
oh my God. But that could just be another mind, because even to this day, I'm still watched. Probably will be taken.
Mhm.
Probably tonight they're gonna maybe do something. Well, let's see, because they're listening right now.
Mhm.
Okay, my father was in the military, and he was airborne radar, and I remember
Wow,
him.
radar man, huh?
Yeah, he picked up the phone wire to me. This was 20 years before the internet, and he said we could run the world on this, and I didn't pay any attention. Like,
Mhm.
I wish I would have paid more attention to what he said to me, but I was a kid, you
Mhm.
know, kind of like, yeah, I'm gonna go have fun
Mhm.
instead of listening. But
Mhm.
yeah, he had to been connected.
When you said earlier about you had made mention of being 5 years old, and that you had said that you have memories that, and I apologize, you said either go that far back or the trauma was from 0 to 5 or from 5 on.
5 on.
5 on. Okay, so you have recollections going back to 5 of, say, being conversational with Rosicrucianists.
There, Rosicrucian and the Rose Garden, and here I would go there quite a bit,
Mhm.
but I don't remember any training. But we would go there.
Understood.
You know, another thing was there was a mental institution by us called Agnew State Hospital. That place was a massive facility.
Okay.
I remember going there a lot, and I was only to observe the behavior of, and you're talking about an 8-10-year-old kid,
Mm-hmm.
to watch the mental behavior.
Mm-hmm.
Why am I doing that?
Fair enough.
You know, and it would it was one of those things that came later on, because as a child, you just do it. My mom was probably not part of it, but was being controlled.
Mm-hmm.
And my sisters are older than me, and I would ask them, "Do you remember the firemen that come to the house?" And she goes, "Yeah." And my dad would tell my sisters to hold my mom in a fetal position, and which is kind of odd.
Kinda.
Okay. Well, when I got to be a certain age, the firemen would come, pick me out of bed, and said, "You need to hold your mom's arm down." What this is, it's breaking the child-mother bond. So my mom, who is trying to get out of the control, is seeing me controlling her,
Mm-hmm.
which I'm being told by the firemen.
Mm-hmm.
Later on in my life, I had a dream. It's actually this one I was taken, and I'm in a room with a bunch of people, and they're drugging the hell out of us. But I'm conscious enough to get up, run over, and there's microphones and cameras on every single person, and I just started snapping them. And they came in, and at first they had the fireman uniform on, and then all of a sudden they took it up and they had Air Force. And the one girl was yelling at me saying she's a clinical psychologist and you'll be okay. I said, "Well, I'll be okay when I get the hell out of here." I busted out the door. I instantly felt a temperature change, and I'm running on these nice big rocks. Wasn't too fun. And of course, finally they caught me.
Mm-hmm.
I've got multiple experiences like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll tell this one. This one may get even pinpoint of like where a my lab is, where they literally take you, because they can open up doorways right now behind me.
Mm-hmm.
They can kill me in front of you, and all you see is a flash of light.
They could.
Yeah, I know that technology.
Yep.
So I went to sleep, and I woke up, and I'm standing by a sliding door. It was open. Some kittens were coming in. I said, "No, you got to stay out there." And I stepped back a little bit, and my consciousness said, "There's something wrong. This isn't Kansas anymore." And I looked up, and there was an observation room. I said, "Okay, we're not at home." And I looked over, and there's a nurse right here. And I turned around, and I saw a door behind me. I just blasted right through it. Started running, ran past the first nurse's station, and then I saw another nurse pop out. She had a needle, and she tried to plunge it into my arm. I was going like this. As she plunged it, I grabbed her hand and the plunger, pulled it out, but the part with the needle stuck.
Mm-hmm.
And so I threw that away, and I grabbed it and threw that away.
Mm-hmm.
I ran out from the building. There was a security guard inside, and I ran right past him. There was a lady that was kind of heavy set, and she was chasing me. She goes, "If he gets out, he's going to talk." And I'm laughing, going, "I bet your ass I am." And when I got outside, I saw outside security, and I'm running like hell. And there's another guy that ran past me, and he goes, "They're hyperstimulating your synapse." And I was literally physically in my underwear and shirt, and I couldn't get away from them. They had one guy had they're like capsules. He crunched them, put them to my face. I'm out. When I ran out of the building, I saw Bank of America. And when I woke up, I looked at my arm. There was a mark here and a scratch, because that's where I grabbed the needle out.
Mm-hmm.
So I looked it up on Google, and I found an optometrist building, which was a long rectangle building.
Mm-hmm.
And I went down to Street View, and I found what looked exactly like where they caught me.
Mm-hmm.
So I went, as far as I know, on Stevens Creek Boulevard in San Jose, across from a Bank of America. That's where I was.
Excellent.
And so saying that, hopefully other people won't go there.
Pay attention to it. Put it on everybody else's radar. You know.
Yeah.
I mean, people have identified that there's a jump gate on Sepulveda Boulevard in Los Angeles. They've identified that there's a Mars jump gate in Montauk. I mean, so people are talking about these things. You're not the first person, but thank you for adding to the story.
Yeah, it's something that I think we all should speak up about. And I've seen thousands of people that fly the crafts all the time. When are they going to speak up? You know, I'm in between. I'm supposed to be here. And even they've never made me sign a non-disclosure agreement. Never. And this has to do with the looking glass. I go to sleep, I wake up, military guy standing next to me, scientist, and we're walking down a hallway. The military guy's face is airbrushed out. So I know, okay, I'm probably here. Go up to an MP who's guarding the scientist laboratory. Scientist signs in, military guy signs in. I went to grab the pen and he said, Michael, you know you can't do that. I said, bullshit. I've been doing this all my life. I'm gonna get paid for this. So he said, you can't do it. So I went and sat down on the bench for the ones that don't have security to get in, and I refused to go in. Fade to black. And next thing I know, I wake up, I'm inside, I'm looking at all this technology to get energy about the size of a TV doorway, and it polarizes frequencies. And instead of like an Einstein-Rosen bridge that uses force on space, it literally pushes so that you have a gravitational field that goes in. It's a joke. They just simply polarize it and it just opens up. And the scientist says, look at that. And I looked in and I saw him and his family having a barbecue. The doorway was about 20 feet in the air, 10 feet back from him barbecue. So he couldn't just look up and see, because you would see himself. So we wanted to keep it out of there. And it was him and his family having a barbecue 4 days earlier. It was not a film or a movie. It was him. And I kind of laughed and said, okay, you're going to have to generate a great deal more energy in order to make it larger so you can go through it. And then that's what I would say, blue beam, which is Norway spiral. As it's spinning, it's with the right frequency, it's hyper stimulating the space. Then at the very end of that, you'll see it twist the other way. It polarizes and the door just opens up. You can fly all sorts of large craft through it. That's time travel.
Yep. Yeah. And there's multiple ways of doing this.
Yeah.
Looking glass technology is a method. I know you said that you have familiarity with the looking glass stuff. It's my understanding that taking the looking glass device in its primary form and inverting it 45 degrees affords you a new phenomenon, which is time travel, or a gate, so to say, gateway formation.
In the one we had, to make it stable, it would be like boom, boom.
Okay.
And it used the frequencies to get it there, but that's it. That's all you saw.
Right.
That's why it's called the looking glass. You couldn't get through it.
Understood. That's
what I saw.
Right. So the primary function is that, but then I've heard from other testimonies that device could then be literally like moved while doing its primary activity. If you were to then physically move it and move it 45 degrees, then something happens in that locale that causes an opening that's usable.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
10-4. Yeah, I'm just throwing that out there.
Yeah.
But then my inquiry to you for the time travel then, if it wasn't looking glass technique, what was it?
Well, with what the military has
Mm-hmm.
is you're
This
getting
portal I
away
guess you're referring to as the method?
Huh?
The portal is the method?
Yeah, to get large things back.
10-4. So then do you have any knowledge on that technology and the history thereof?
It uses frequencies
Mm-hmm.
to move from, and this is the best way I can explain it, move from here to what other frequencies, because in the Tunguska blast,
Mm-hmm.
what humans were going about is to find out, okay, we need to make a mark. We're trying to get our frequency of that time frame
Mm-hmm.
correct, because every event holds a frequency.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's all happening right now.
Totally understood.
So we need to find out what that frequency is.
Mm-hmm.
So, and we don't want to call, and here's the thing, that at that time, they didn't want to cause any paradoxes or
Mm-hmm.
alternate realities, which they have done a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So we had opened the doorway and sent it back and exploded it. You read about it in the paper.
It was really noble for them to say such things back in the day, right? To say, oh, we're gonna try to not mess up the timetables as we go mess with time.
As we go mess up the timetables. It's timelines and such are multiple. With me, I've been on many time loops.
Mm-hmm.
Some train me and then put me back the exact moment I left. I remember one, I call it my Groundhog Day. It was actually 5:59. I woke up, the clock turned to 6 o'clock, and I thought, oh, right, I got about an hour before I go walk the dog. I woke up, my dog was gone. I got up I had a little mobile home. I started walking into the front room and I went, who are you? And there was this lady closing what looked like gas valves. And she goes, well, I'm your housekeeper. So I don't have a housekeeper. She ran towards the door. I went and grabbed her by the wrist. The door opened. There's this large, probably 6'5", maybe 7 foot blonde woman. And she said, Michael, let her go. I said, no. And I was really adamant then. You're going to tell me what the blank is going on. And I noticed I could dart out past her. So I ran out of the house. It wasn't my house. It was a replica. She said, you're not ready to know. I said, baloney, you tell me. So telepathically, she opened her eyes and said, you're in a training program. You're not on Earth. And we can't go into too much detail. And I was about to freak out.
Mm-hmm.
So I turned around to run. And these guys were about 9 feet tall. And they just picked me up, walked me to a white doorway, and put me in it. And that was a wormhole. And it's kind of like Stargate.
Mm-hmm.
I'm moving through it at extreme speed, and I'm yelling, but it's not a tunnel. There's no echo. I barely hear my voice as I was screaming.
Mm-hmm.
I landed back in bed. I looked over at the clock. It was 5:59 and turned to 6 o'clock again. And my dog was there. They let me know from time to time that I'm being taken.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it's happened multiple times.
I can follow that.
Yeah, and it's like, okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I've learned, even if it's not too pleasant, just to go with it.
Mm-hmm.
As a child, I would run through the house and I would tell my mom, I said, I can't control my body. She goes, well, you're sleepwalking. And I said, no, I'm wide awake, but I can't control my body. And they would actually block ways
Mm-hmm.
in the house where I'm running. I'd just jump right over it, you know. When I hit 50 years old, I remember sitting here, I'm going, I'm pretty tired. I'm going to go stretch out. And it was not even evening. And I laid in bed and I stretched out. The ceiling turned to a blue-white spiral. I was pulled out.
Mm-hmm.
My 50-year-old consciousness landed in my, I would say, 6-year-old body, maybe 7. I looked down, I'm in my tighty-whities. I look over, my dad's there. Of course, they passed away years back.
So
My
of course,
mom
the first thing you want to do is run.
I went and I realized, ooh, I know why I'm here, because the small grays used to take me.
Mm-hmm.
And so I looked down the den we had, and I didn't like it as a kid, and I didn't like the slider because I knew they were there.
Mm-hmm.
And I found one, and I'm going, come here, because I was probably going to wring his neck. And then I went over to the slider, and I opened the drapes real quick, and there was 2 there. Then I just bolted outside, and there were 6 silver triangular craft just hovering over the house. And I go, look, Mom, there they are. Look. She goes, Michael, come back in the house. And then at that point, I knew she was in on it. They gave me up to the program.
Okay.
And she said, wow, Michael, you were frightened at first, and then you were frightening. You even scared the teacher. And I was saying to myself, yeah, if I would have got a hold of the teacher, I'd have rung his bell. So, yeah, that helped me live.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was, my childhood doctor was Dr. Green, the infamous Dr. Green.
Mm-hmm.
When I looked up Joseph Mingala
Mm-hmm.
and his pictures, when I got to the age of what my doctor was, it sent like a jolt through my spine.
Mm-hmm.
That was my Dr. Green.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember being put in, but not as a child. My consciousness would go back. Being put into a cage where, and like in a fetal position, you can't move.
Mm-hmm.
Electric shock would hit you, and it was painful.
Mm-hmm.
And then they would turn it off. And I remember thinking to myself, my God, I made it past that.
Mm-hmm.
That was just to loosen your muscles up. Then they hit me with the real stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And all I heard was somebody screaming far away.
Yeah.
And as it got closer and closer, it was me. That's how they compartmentalized the mind. And mine, I'm sure I don't have full recollection of all the things I've done.
Mm-hmm. So
It just-
now from your perspective, you're talking to me about your experience with the cages. Is from your perspective, is this something that happened in these challenging dreams, so to say, or do you have a recollection of this being in reality surrounded by Rosicrucians?
Well, when I got back into the body, standing as a child,
Mm-hmm.
I remember that's why I was out of control of the body.
Okay.
I could see everything, but my 50-year-old consciousness took the information that my parents gave me up,
Mm-hmm.
because I don't think I would have lived.
Mm-hmm.
I would have had an extreme hard time.
Mm-hmm.
So I went back as 50-year-old conscious and older and
Mhm.
take back memories of that child.
Ah, 10-4.
See,
Yes, I'm
and
following you.
I did take back certain abilities, and my grandparents that were in Masonic, they were high ranking.
Mm-hmm.
My grandmother hated me because they had an exceptional child
Mm-hmm.
that had certain abilities. Well, I took them, and I think that's the only reason I stayed alive this long,
Mm-hmm.
because I've been through a lot of hell.
I can follow what you're saying.
Yeah.
My mind can follow the logic because on my end, I'm starting to find connections from my now to my past. So I can
And you-
appreciate that. It's a new avenue for my brain to go. I'm happy to hear you say, because it supports where my brain has been going, and understanding these technologies and these techniques and the energies involved. I've been trying to figure out a way to formulate the vocabulary to let people know that what we do now can impact the past.
Actually, like
In both ways. There's a symbiosis going on.
it's like we do affect all, instead of calling it time, all frequencies.
Yes, correct.
So
Yes, it's all going on at once. I appreciate what you're saying, that you
yeah,
feel that you are operating on, let's just say, many frequencies, multi-levels. There's synonymous terms. It's semantics. But I'm not going to argue with you. I'm going to agree that that's your perspective. I'm going to agree that I'm witnessing this myself from my perspective as well, and that others are as well. And we all lack the vocabulary because it's a new concept.
yeah. In order, how do we put it together so we can really
Right.
explain it?
Right.
You know,
There are some people that are aware that this is a reality and they're wielding it. There are some scholars that have touched on the topics and tried to inform us. In my timeline video, which I'll probably try to link to this, I think you're going to really like this.
yeah, I'd like to see. Yeah,
There's a gentleman by the name of Itzhak Bentov, and he wrote a book called Stalking the Wild Pendulum, which is cited heavily in the works of the CIA for the mental work that they were doing on the children. I mean, this is literally part of the format and structure that gave them the basis and belief system to work with. And it goes very clearly that we have this perspective that we're here in our waking state, and that when we go to sleep, so to say, whatever sleep is, that phenomenon, that there's a transition, there's a science, there's a reality that we can discuss, and there's a vocabulary to be created, because that's life. And we need to understand that it's a lot more complex than what our five senses have been letting us know up to this point, because
Yeah.
our five senses do not do justice to the reality around us when they only give us a very short-sighted view of the observable reality, which is just basically a condensation in a way of the rest of reality that we don't get to observe, but still is important and impacts us constantly because it's not unreal.
no. Here's, I've had beings, and I'll just call it on that level, and they've been around me since I can remember. And I remember one time I went to sleep, I woke up, and I just went, "Who's the boss around here?" Because I was kind of pissed off. And one guy says, "Just go over there." And so I walked up to this guy on the desk. I've seen him for years. And he says, "Michael, when you fall asleep from this reality, pay attention to how people speak in that reality." And when I did, I got to see that some people will, when they speak about their perceptions, it's ironclad. That's how it is. Well, I know that this perception here, it's just a projected perception, and mine is just one play, and it changes all the time. You know? And it was a real good wake up to constantly realize, wait, we're just playing a game here. If we have a soul, or if we have consciousness that lives on, what's so big about this one? And I would say the biggest thing that we can do is help people have a little bit of a crack or question their reality, like you were talking about, is just add a little bit to it and see which way they go. And all it needs to be is just a little bit.
Absolutely. I mean, this is what I know about my perspective of reality. It's not true. That much I know. Right? That much I know. There's reality, which is true, and then there's my perspective, which does no justice to reality, and I can admit that. So I often wonder why so many people are so endearing to their perspective, as if it is some sort of truth.
Yep.
Really?
Yeah.
No.
When my mom,
And people need to be more honest about that, and at least share their story to let everybody else get a bigger view of the picture. I almost think of it like a painting, right? You get to add one stroke to the canvas. That's your perspective. It is certainly not reality. It is not representative of the whole picture, but it is extremely important to the picture.
And when my mom passed away, she would, most all my, there's no other side for me
Mm-hmm.
because I oscillate back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
When I was waking up one day, she whispered in my ear, she goes, everything here is a lie. And whatever you do, don't go to the doctor. And what she was trying to share with me is that if you believe a doctor to say you have this or that, you can manifest it within your own self. Now, each one of us is on a different, how would I say it? A different frequency of energy.
Mm-hmm.
We're all different. Some people can manifest immediate. I mean, instantaneously immediate.
Mm-hmm.
Others, their focus may be a little different, but with me, she was saying, don't believe what you hear. And my dad, being military, said, believe nothing of what you hear and only half of what you see.
Mm-hmm.
And
Man,
that's pretty much true.
who did you just say used to tell you that?
My dad, he was military.
And for my grandfather would
Say the
it
same
all
thing?
time. And then my father, of course, and now obviously it's ringing in my head. Yes.
It's
And I
true.
do find that funny with my focus on digging through these groups and folks like you and trying to learn from my past and my experiences. I'm finding it extremely interesting, the amount of catchphrases just like that that are rampant in the programs.
Yep.
It's like a glossary. There's like a damn glossary of terms. Like you will use these terms around these children religiously.
Yep. And the thing is, I don't forget it because it's been ingrained.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's I've been lucky enough to what I would call go through spiritual dimensional realities,
Mm-hmm.
and they've taught me things about you're not physical, you're not Michael, you're much more.
Mm-hmm.
Now there was, I like this one. It's pretty graphic, but I woke up and I had white gloves on and a blue jumpsuit, and I was a woman. I was driving this car in probably 1920s, and there's no turn signals or anything. You just, when you turn, you turn.
Mm-hmm.
I looked beside me, and there was a guy that's really serious looking. And a guy behind me, he's chewing gum like it's going out of style. I made the turn. This guy in this car just started shooting with a revolver. Killed me. I fell out of the car. Michael's consciousness rose above it. The guy behind me had a double barrel shotgun. He came up and literally blew the head off of this woman who was, quote, me, then reloaded and shot again. I started laughing, going, my God, I must have pissed somebody off. I floated to a tree. I'm just light now. I'm in form, but I'm just light. A being came down. He landed on the other side of the fence. And he said to me, you're not that lady. And I laughed. I said, of course I'm not. Then he said directly to me, you're not Michael either. And that power hit me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a character playing in this.
Mm-hmm.
And so why not speak out?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't matter what I speak out again.
Mm-hmm.
It's mostly military,
Mm-hmm.
you know, because that's what I've been involved with all my life.
10-4. Well, I'm glad you decided to speak out. I mean,
Yeah, it's a need be.
Mm-hmm. I'm really glad that we finally connected. I'm really jiving with everything that you're saying. It's striking a chord with me and resonating. So I think that we're making some good connections here. I've written down some stuff that you've said that was, I guess, in a way, almost triggering of memories for myself, which is kind of why I do these things. You had said earlier that when you were a child, you would go to sleep and read books. that actually blew my mind because that brought me right back to that activity. I did not, prior to this conversation, have that recollection, but I can recall that. I recall reading in my dreams, which you're right, that sounds really weird.
It's not everyone can do it.
But I was also, as a child, in some seriously advanced academics, and I couldn't really tell you why, so to say. I mean,
Was that on Montauk?
It was on Long Island. It was on Long Island. It was in the first suburb of the United States, known as Levittown, built by William Levitt for the World War II veterans that were returning home. The community was exclusively World War II veterans. Think about that. You're talking military families. My father was Navy. We're in a World War II veteran community, basically, that was about as old school as you could get for the 1970s and 80s, at which point in time I was going to Catholic school in this community. So it was a very weird time.
Yeah, I would say there's lots of things you could dig up within your own memory.
Oh, absolutely, and that's the path that I'm going down, because the academics and the way that I was treated in that school, I was sitting in my classroom. My mother would not allow for me to be advanced for the academic years. They had asked every year. They were constantly hounding her to let me move up multiple grade levels, and she said that she didn't think that was good for me. So instead, I actually sat in my academic grade level doing the work of the classes above me. The teachers would come into my classroom and give me work to do, and I would do the older grades work while the kids around me were listening to the teacher. So I would listen to the teacher. I would also do the work that I was supposed to be doing in that class, and I would simultaneously be doing the work for the grade levels above me.
Yeah, I would say without a doubt you did even more.
Yes, and I'm learning. Yes, because then I would additionally get pulled out of class regularly to go to the library for what I was told was the talented and gifted date program that was the Monroe Institute remote viewing, and I was getting trained in that. And you know, these are all things that I'm connecting. I was a prodigy in certain ways that I'm learning was advantageous to military programs.
Yeah, well, the whole island is military. I mean, Montauk. I mean, it played with high technology.
The entire length of Long Island, I would suggest to people, is a giant fortification. Because just from a nation's point of view, the amount of industrial parks that are building parts for things that we need to run always, and I mean, like, these are the machinations of a society and its defense. And then if you want to protect that facility that makes that doohickey, then guess what?
You'll protect it.
You'll protect the shit out of it.
Yeah, especially from what they've done.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, me and my dad had a little company where we drilled printed circuit boards. Mm-hmm. And my father could drill 4 mills back in the 80s. Mm-hmm. That's the size of your hair. Well, we did some work for AUTEC. I think they work on submarines out in Bimini.
I know exactly who you're talking about. AUTEC, AUTEC.
Yeah, and so they would call up, and they would say, okay, we want to rent it for your machine or whatever for 2 hours. Mm-hmm. You have to lock the doors, sign an agreement, non-disclosure. Mm-hmm. My dad said, fine. Mm-hmm. And this, I didn't think anything of it at the time. Well, I'm there. My dad's there. The guy comes in with looked like a disc, but I could literally look at holes in a printed circuit board because I've been in it for so long and tell you what it is. He came in with this wafer, small, thin thing, and I'm going, whoa. My dad signs the non-disclosure agreement, hands it to him. I'm thinking I'm going to sign it. Mm-hmm. Nope. And I'm sitting there going, he didn't even present it to me.
Yeah.
Okay, because they know me.
Yes.
I'm not supposed to have my name anywhere. So I'm drilling this guy on what the hell it is.
Mm-hmm.
He goes, it's memory. It's for storage. And I looked at it and went, don't look like that.
Mm-hmm.
And he'd never had me sign a non-disclosure agreement.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing when I went to that scientist laboratory. They would not let me sign the MP's logbook.
Mm-hmm.
My name is nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
Yet I've been through military and seen so much.
Mm-hmm.
Nowhere.
Yep.
Yeah. So
I've gone down that road as well. In addition to the stuff that I do, you'll get a kick out of this. So in addition to the stuff that I do for the truth movement and helping out people that have been in these programs, I'm also a good American, and I do stuff locally up here with the militia and helping the community in a very standard constitutional, we the people type environment. But with that being said, you get observed as well. I forget where I was going with this now. What were you just saying that I switched gears on?
well, I was talking about that they never had me sign any non-disclosure agreements in physicality or in what I have as my night experiences.
I lost my place.
Probably with you because you've been, it sounds to me that you've been involved with a lot more than what you can remember.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yes. So I'm trying to get into a direction to make more connections, of course. But in that process, there are folks that show up that also try to, draw you off.
And it's the way to me that I've noticed it's done. It's just a small diversion, just a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And what I've noticed is, and you've not ever done this in this conversation, which most people, when I speak, they do this. They will say, so what I'm hearing you say, and then they divert. So the last thing people hear is their diversion, but you've never said that in this conversation, which makes me, I mean, that's straight up.
Noticing that, because I would never want to do that to someone, because I also don't like when that happens to me.
Yep.
I'm aware of that in conversations as well.
Yeah, it's a diversionary tactic.
Yeah, and sometimes it's challenging to me because I don't know the people's motive. Is it intentional or an expression of their programming? So I try to give people the benefit of the doubt, but you're right, that happens.
Yeah, I've actually met, I have a friend what kind of friend? I've known him for about 10 years, and I see him out when I'm out at night, and he's part of the programming.
Mm-hmm.
I told him he's part of it, and it's like no big deal to him. But when he speaks, it's all a diversion. Like if I was speaking to one person, he would then try to divert it away constantly. Right. And so I turned to him, I said, see that, what you're saying? That's mind control. But I don't think he really cares.
I made my connection to why I brought up the militia before. Thank you. Organizations where you're just trying to make an effort, right?
Yeah.
What I learned through going through the militia direction is that there are 3 common problems that occur in this effort. Is you have moles, provocateurs, and dissipators. And in our community, there's not really too much use of moles or provocateurs. Provocateurs basically would just be trolls in the digital world for the truthing movement. But then what you and I are discussing right now is the dissipation. And that's almost programmed into the society.
Yeah.
That as you're trying to put the truth out there, you'll see how fast this dissipation program presents itself in that personality that you're dialoguing with.
Yeah, I was speaking to a naval, I don't know if he was a pilot, I forget, but it was way back, and I just started talking about how things, like in how the government and the New World Order is trying to get everything in the military is involved in this and this and this.
Mhm.
He literally said, "Stop. I don't want to hear anymore."
Right.
And I said, "Okay, great."
Yep.
Yeah.
That's
Because
part of the program too. It's so the meal of the truth that someone is required to eat, having been fed untruth for so long, it's so big it's undigestible. You'll choke on it.
yeah, yeah.
You
I've
know?
heard it many times. They'll say, "Okay, stop right there. I
Yes.
want to be in my little world." Okay,
That's what happens.
fine.
It's
Yeah.
it's a comfort zone, and that's why they're comfortable to begin with. Is they've had a false sense of security built around them, and heaven forbid you start discussing the frailty of that structure and
Oh
what's
my God.
really going on outside of the view of that structure that's been
Yeah.
made for their perspective.
And you can actually see it in any kind of abusive relationship. They will still stay with it
Mhm.
for the lack of change.
That's a great way to bring people's attention to it. Is it really shows how an individual will function when exposed to trauma. We know this. You're right. When a
Yeah.
person is exposed to trauma and more trauma and more trauma, they have this peculiar, endearing comfort zone that gets created.
Even if it's trauma and drama or
Yes.
painful.
And then if you try to identify the problems in their world and suggest that they put effort into mitigating those problems, they will now take their effort and put it against you.
Yeah. Yeah. You've done stepped into their world that,
Right.
yeah.
And I think
I,
this is where we are at with society right now, with folks like you and I and others that are speaking out and trying to get people to get out of their comfort zones.
you have
I
to.
mean, it's unfortunate, but you know what? There's a truth that's coming that's going to be very hard to digest. But
It- it-
it's a meal that's getting prepared to be served.
I keep getting, and I've had visions and stuff and showing me stuff all my life.
Mhm.
And when I tell people, they say, "Well, it's not going to happen in my lifetime."
Mhm.
And I kind of laugh. I go, "I'm 61 and I've been seeing this my entire life. Why in the world would I be shown this if I don't live through it?"
Mhm.
And it kind of shocks people
Mhm.
because they don't want change.
Mhm.
They just want to stay in that bubble.
Mhm.
So it's kind of unnerving at times
Mhm.
because it's amazing how violent some people can go to keep the status quo, even if it's a big, big lie.
Yeah, almost to the extent that there might be people on this planet that would be willing to sacrifice the lives of thousands of people to do such a thing.
Yep. And that's how
So
it's scary to think about. It's like, oh my God.
Mhm.
But yeah, it's at times I get pretty frustrated.
Yes, it could be very challenging
Yeah.
mentally to understand that this dilemma exists, to understand that something should be done about it, but to also know that the vast majority of people are contented in choosing to be ignorant.
Yeah. Yeah. And for me, speaking out, there's been times I feel like I'm choking on all the stuff I have.
Yes.
And it's like I got to get it out,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
this helps a great deal.
I'm happy to hear you say that. I'm happy to help to give you an avenue
An
for.
avenue. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
this is my primary mission with what I'm doing on this channel. Excuse me, was in the process of finding my own truth and comfort is to help other people find their truth and comfort.
Yeah.
Simply put, I'm a tradesman. I grew up in the trades. I'm from a blue collar family. I appreciate the labor of others that have been to the job site before me, so to say. And I want to make the job site easier for the next craftsman that shows up after me. That's it. So I can appreciate that myself in my life experience, I was negatively impacted as a child. I know other people were negatively impacted, and I know some people showed up to this job site, so to say, before me to mitigate the problem. I respect them. I want to support them, but I want to provide an avenue for the people coming behind you and me, and hopefully make it easier for them.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that was a doorbell, but
No worries. I don't want to keep you forever, so if you do have to go, you just let me know.
what else do you have on your list that you wanted to look
Well,
at?
let's see. We did cover some of that stuff, time travel. I think we kind of did touch tip of the iceberg on almost most of the subjects, which is fantastic. I do believe at any point in time we could go into more things in depth.
Yeah.
But for the purposes of my, I guess, overall agenda, maybe, let's put it this way, right? I think with what we've discussed, what you're trying to do and what I'm trying to do, I'm going to throw something out there and let me know if you're willing to engage. You have a life experience and a knowledge and a belief, I guess, that children are being negatively impacted, right? Is that fair to say?
That's like a little icing. They're being totally controlled.
Understood.
Yeah.
Okay, so with
Yeah.
that being said, it's fair that you agree with that. So I would like to give you the floor, Mike. There are parents that need to know that their children are in more danger than they are aware of. Could you try to explain to them this danger from your experience? What's
What?
going on?
Okay.
A
What
child is
really?
born in this country. What's the potential danger?
What I go to is that the guy Michael Francesi that got out of the mafia. He pretty much got out of the mafia, and he was talking to um, football players and baseball players, and he's saying, you may not know it, but with your abilities as a football, baseball players, you're an asset that can be manipulated to make money.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing with children.
Mm-hmm.
When they have an ability, the manipulation starts. Now, the parents may be totally unaware of that, of what's maybe happening with the kid. But with my parents, I pretty much was, I mean, my father was military. I was pretty much destined for that. But with the abilities of children, the parents should look at it and watch them very closely, and do not just up and send them to a private school or a institution. I would be extremely I wouldn't trust it. The way I grew up, I wouldn't trust anyone.
I
But
understand.
with children, I wouldn't want to put them in any place. You're obviously going to know the child's a little different. Going to have some abilities. They're always different. I wouldn't put them into quote camps. I wouldn't put them into any place, anywhere that you don't have at least a daily interaction with them.
Mm-hmm.
Do not give them away. Don't give them up.
Totally understood. But now you're talking about the gifted children, right? Which would certainly be a problem once found. But technically, all parents, I would say, should be concerned because, correct me if I'm wrong, all of these kids are going through a process. The gifted
Yeah.
ones are being funneled off for special operations. But are you suggesting that the other parents have no concerns?
No,
Right?
because children are the most pliable at a young age.
Right?
And you can actually look at the children of Africa
Mm-hmm.
where they became soldiers and killed.
Mm-hmm.
To them, that's normal. Killing someone is not bad because that's how they've been programmed.
Mm-hmm.
Any child can be groomed, even without abilities or not, can be groomed to do something that to them is normal.
I think any human can, and any child, it just makes it easier. It's a better starting point in the formative years.
Well, like with me, I
Mm-hmm.
had a gung ho America, so I did do shootings. I was a shooter.
Mhm.
And I'll say this. There was one time I woke up, I'm in an APC. There's 3 shooters. I'm one of them. We're going after an Army general who is going off the reservation and going to talk. And I walked into the free market area. I had the right side, and another guy had the middle, another guy had the other side. The general saw me, and when you're under mind control, you have absolutely no emotion in your eyes, and that will scare the hell out of anyone. Well, he ran in front of me, and I shot him 3 times in the chest, and then there was a large woman that I had to shoot to get away. Because I was gung-ho America, they put me into that.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
I thought it was okay.
I would say that that would be the filtering process for which you got sucked out of the program and given direction.
Yep.
But I guess what my big picture goal, Michael, is to try to impress upon the majority of parents that their children are, I guess, being processed.
Yeah, yes. And now you look at the influx of people coming to America, the immigrants,
Mm-hmm.
and they're separating the children.
Mm-hmm.
Not a good idea.
There,
Well, I mean, what
there
can
are
you do?
folks that look at this stuff on long timetables, and I think that's the idea. Is I'm trying to impress upon people that if we understand that, and I guess I'll put it the way that Mark Passio, I don't know if you're familiar with his work, but he discusses human beings and says that as much as we don't like to hear it, the nature of human beings is that we're programmable.
Yeah.
That's our nature.
Yes.
So there are folks, and again, he also says it doesn't matter whether you believe it or not, they believe it. So they believe humans are very programmable. They have intentions on what roles need to be filled. They also have designs on what it takes to properly train someone to do that role. And they're most certainly not going to wait for you to give authorization for your child to get into the program that they know it takes 20 years to make the product they want.
It's difficult because look at what's happening in the world.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we have wars. What comes out of all these wars are orphans.
Mm-hmm.
Where do they go? See,
Into a program.
This is what's really, it is about saving the children.
I agree.
Because they can be programmed to be this, that, or the other thing.
I would say that would be the least common denominator battle cry of what I am trying to do. You could take every other crime or sin, and the least common denominator is stop doing this to the children.
Yep. And I think it's getting to a head where people are starting to realize,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
with all the not only child pedophilia,
Mm-hmm.
but what they do with children.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to call it super soldiers,
Mm-hmm.
when children have abilities, they wish to use them as a weapon.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they wanted me for.
Yes.
I took that ability away, and
Mm-hmm.
it's
I'm
many times linear, so you can go back and say, okay, you're not going to have that now.
I'm going to throw something out there, and I think you'll be able to wrap your brain around this very fast. In my latter teen years, I joined the United States Navy Submarine Service and was contracted to be a fire control technician for what would be up to and including potentially nuclear armed weapons. So I assure you that the United States Navy understands that when the time comes and they want me to push that button, they want me to push that button without pause. And I also assure you that they understand that the proper training for that role did not start when I was 18 years old.
No. No, I wouldn't think so.
No.
Especially where you grew up, or where
Correct.
in that area.
My training started much earlier.
Yeah, and mine was because of my military family and Masonic, I got all sorts of training.
Yep.
And
Yes.
Yeah, control.
And that's what I'm trying to impress upon folks, I guess, is that that's the true way that our military industrial complex works.
Yep.
They have products that they need, and they truly understand the process, and they will apply it. And you will be ignorant. You will pay your mortgage. And they will do what they want with your kids whenever they want to, and you will have no idea because you don't understand the technique, and you don't understand the technology, and if
Yeah.
anybody tries to talk to you about these things, you will go for their throat because now they're talking about your kids.
Yeah, and then
Heaven forbid somebody is told that their child is being manipulated without their knowledge.
and it happens all the time. It happens in cartoons
Mm-hmm.
and in light waves, light flashes.
Mhm.
I think there was a cartoon they released in South Korea.
Mm-hmm.
It sent 30 children to the hospital with epileptic seizures because the way the light enters our eyes can be programmable. That's why when you get interrogated, the light strobes. Oh yeah.
I just noticed this week watching Netflix that when you turn on an episode of something, certain episodes will have on the screen, it'll say, you know, warning about the light flashes may cause a medical condition or something. I'm paraphrasing. And I saw that flash up on the screen. I went, oh my God. And I went to go rewind it and it didn't show up again.
It didn't show anymore?
No.
Probably just once.
Yes.
Just one time.
We gave you a warning.
Yep. Yep.
We warned you.
As far as I know, on this play or this earth,
Mm-hmm.
they have to let us know. They can't hide everything.
That's correct.
Now, with this pandemic and with coronavirus, Trump said it's not as bad as the flu, and you never heard anything about it.
Mm-hmm.
If you look up the kill ratio and all that, it's very low.
Oh yeah, yeah.
It's not worth shutting the world down.
It's not
They're
even
just-
worth starting a conversation as far as I'm concerned. The numbers are so
Yeah.
low, it's not even worth starting a conversation about this illness.
Yeah, and it's like they said it once,
Mhm.
and that's all they have to do.
I'm equally concerned with the amount of people that fall out of trees and die every year.
it's
You know,
probably more.
potentially. Again, could care less to talk about it. It's not impacting my life in reality.
Actually, with men, nothing has changed in my reality.
Right.
It's like I still go do everything I do
Mm-hmm.
because I'm not in a big city.
I shouldn't say nothing's changed. I'm having trouble finding employment because I like my rights.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is. See, that's the thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, okay, if you don't wear a mask, you don't work. What?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah.
I mean, I am a person of my convictions. I've told people before, I could be wealthy right now. All I have to do is compromise all my morals.
And it's
I could be a millionaire almost overnight. I could have been a millionaire 10 times over at this point. I've worked for billionaires who straight up told me, I would have cut you a check for $25,000. Here's your $100 that you asked for over the phone. I thought it was a big deal. It wasn't a big deal. You could have came here and lied to me. And I just smile and say, yeah, I know, but then I couldn't sleep at night.
Yeah, I pretty much figured myself I can't really be bought. I'd rather tell the truth.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not for everyone.
No,
But
it's not.
guess what? I'll keep saying it.
Yep.
Over and over and over.
Yep. Well, Michael, I appreciate that you shared your truth with me. I appreciate.
I'd love to have more questions. You know.
Yes. I am going to come back with everything that you had told me today. I would love. Well, this is a great starting point because you've given me a lot of info. I can understand everything that you said. We are completely on the same page, which I think has great value. I do not want to be in a conversation where we constantly rehash things. I would love to keep going to new plateaus. If it turns out that the conversation gets complex for folks, they could put questions underneath and we could try to get to them.
Yeah.
I think that would be a great direction to go. I want to move forwards. I want to go on point, and I want to clear ground, and let's see how far and fast we can push.
And that's the thing with me, because when I go to sleep,
Mhm.
things that I've done here, I'm pretty much told things.
Yes.
So to me, it's like, okay, let's see what we stirred up.
Yes, and I want to discuss that more, because same here. These are things that I don't normally get to discuss with folks because I don't know their level of understanding. I also have what I call training or challenge dreams.
Yeah.
I've discussed this with other experiencers. I actually have a woman that I'm trying to coordinate with soon to talk about these training and challenge dreams, because she approached me through what I had put out there, and had said, kind of in a way, was like she threw a dream out there that she had been dealing with and wanted me to discuss it with her for almost like a translation. But lo and behold, we shared the experience, which was mind-numbing.
And what I've been able to do, and with friends and such, we'll say, okay, can I come visit you? Can we connect on that level? And literally, I've played baseball with my friend, and
Mhm.
he knew from his perception, he
Mhm.
was a pitcher, I was hitting, and we had that experience at night.
10-4.
So yeah, we'll see if you're open to anything on any level.
Uh-huh.
Let's see what happens.
Well,
That'd be great.
I was just thinking on that level. Let's see if we can cross paths.
Yes,
It's
I'm
always
up for that.
absolutely. It's always a
That'd be
challenge.
great.
I've crossed paths with others in different capacities. If you are open to attempting to cross paths over there, I'd say let's try it.
Let's do it then.
Cool beans,
Yes.
Michael. So we're
That's
making
great.
connections here. We're making connections there. I think that is a beautiful thing. I think we have good time today.
Yeah.
I am hoping to God that this recorded and that the
Just
sound.
keep going. To me, it's just the connection, because I get chills when you speak of certain things. That tells me,
Excellent.
yeah,
Yes.
it's
Same here.
real.
Yes.
Yeah.
Same
Yeah.
here, Michael. This is fantastic. Yes, certain things that happened today, I got a little bit of goosebumps and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So,
Well, yeah.
there is some harmonic resonant frequency connections going on. Let's keep in touch with the Gmail. I'm going to get this video up ASAP. God willing, the acoustics hold up. And
Yeah.
by all means, let's see if people throw some questions on the YouTube channel. And if you can get in there and answer some questions, I'll do my best as well.
Yeah, and email wise, I'll keep in touch and see what I'm getting
Exactly.
in different levels.
And then you know what? We will do this again.
Perfect.
Excellent.
Sounds
Mike.
great.
Excellent. I enjoyed chatting with you. Have a wonderful afternoon. I really appreciate it.
You too. I loved it.
Awesome.
All right. We'll see you later. Okay. Yeah. How do we turn it off?